Doctor, what did the AI find? It decoded thousands of ancient Ayurvedic records of oil pulling. Fascinating, so a 5,000-year-old. Exactly, it bridges ancient modern science.
Every morning, roughly 300 million Americans wake up, walk to the bathroom, and pour a capful of mouthwash, Listerine, Scope, Crest, Pro, Health. They swish it around for 30 seconds, spit it out, and believe they have just improved their oral health. They do this because their dentist told them to, because the commercials told them to, because the packaging says kills 99.9% of germs. What the packaging does not say is that mouthwash also kills the beneficial bacteria in your mouth, the bacteria that produce nitric oxide, a molecule essential for cardiovascular health, blood pressure regulation, and immune function. A 2020 study published in Free Radical Biology and Medicine found that regular mouthwash use is associated with increased blood pressure and a higher risk of developing diabetes. A separate study in nitric oxide, biology and chemistry found that using chlorhexidine mouthwash twice daily for just 1 week reduced oral nitric oxide production by 90% and increased systolic blood pressure by 2 to 3.5 mmHg. That may sound small, it is not. At a population level, a 2 mmHg increase in average systolic blood pressure translates to a 7% increase in cardiovascular mortality and a 10% increase in stroke mortality. You are sterilizing your mouth twice a day with a chemical solution that destroys the microbiome your body needs to function normally. And you are paying $8 a bottle for the privilege. The oral microbiome contains over 700 identified bacterial species. It is the second most diverse microbiome in the human body after the gut. These bacteria are not invaders, they are residents. They have co-evolved with humans for hundreds of thousands of years. They form biofilms on the surfaces of teeth and gums that protect against pathogenic invasion. They produce antimicrobial compounds that keep dangerous species in check. They convert dietary nitrate from green vegetables into nitric oxide, which dilates blood vessels, lowers blood pressure, and supports immune function. They communicate with the immune system through chemical signals that regulate inflammation. Chlorhexidine mouthwash kills all of them, the good ones and the bad ones, without distinction, without selectivity, without understanding or caring about the ecological consequences. It is the oral equivalent of carpet bombing a city to eliminate a few criminals. The criminals die, so does everyone else, and the city takes months to rebuild, if it rebuilds at all. 5,000 years ago, on the other side of the planet, a physician in ancient India wrote down a different approach. Take 1 tablespoon of sesame oil or coconut oil, put it in your mouth, swish it slowly for 15 to 20 minutes, spit it out, rinse with warm water. Do this every morning before eating. The technique is called oil pulling Kavalagraha in Sanskrit, and it appears in the Charaka Samhita, one of the foundational texts of Ayurvedic medicine, written approximately 3,000 years ago from oral traditions dating back to roughly 3000 BC. It also appears in the Charaka Samhita, the other foundational Ayurvedic text, which focuses more on surgery but includes extensive sections on daily health practices. Together, these two texts represent the oldest surviving systematic medical literature in human history, older than Hippocrates by over 1,000 years, older than the Ebers Papyrus by 500 years, older than traditional Chinese medicine's Huangdi Neijing by several centuries. For 5 millennia, across the Indian subcontinent, hundreds of millions of practitioners of Ayurveda have been oil pulling every morning. It is not an exotic ritual. It is not a fringe practice. It is daily hygiene as routine as brushing teeth, as normal as washing hands. Over 1 billion people alive today live in countries where Ayurveda is a recognized, government-funded medical system. Oil pulling is prescribed in Ayurvedic clinics the way mouthwash is prescribed in American dental offices. The only difference is that one tradition has 5,000 years of continuous practice behind it and the other has 150. The modern dental industry has spent those same 5 millennia dismissing it as folk medicine, pseudoscience, or cultural superstition. No major dental association in the Western world recommends it. No dental school teaches it. No insurance company covers it. In 2024, an AI meta-analysis system processed every clinical study ever published on oil pulling, 42 peer-reviewed papers spanning 15 years of research, alongside the original Ayurvedic texts, translated through natural language processing. What the AI found was not ambiguous. Oil pulling works, not as well as the ancient texts claim. It does not cure cancer or reverse blindness, as some Ayurvedic practitioners suggest. But for its primary use, oral hygiene, it performs comparably to chlorhexidine mouthwash, the gold standard of dental antiseptics, without any of the side effects. The $8 bottle of mouthwash that kills your oral microbiome performs no better than a $0.10 tablespoon of coconut oil that has been used since before the pyramids were built, and the AI just proved it. Oil pulling is one of the oldest continuously practiced health techniques in human history. It originates from the Ayurvedic medical tradition, a system of medicine developed in the Indian subcontinent that dates back at least 5,000 years, making it the oldest surviving medical system in the world. Ayurveda predates Chinese traditional medicine by roughly 1,000 years. It predates Greek medicine by 2,000 years. It predates modern Western medicine by nearly 5 millennia. The Charaka Samhita, written around 300 BC but based on oral traditions stretching back to at least 1,500 BC and possibly to 3,000 BC, describes oil pulling in a chapter on daily health routines. Dinacharya alongside tongue scraping, nasal rinsing, and self-massage with warm oil. It is not presented as a medical treatment for disease. It is presented as daily hygiene, the same category as brushing your teeth or washing your face. Something you do every morning as a matter of basic self-care. The technique is simple. You take approximately 1 tablespoon of oil, traditionally sesame oil, though coconut oil has become more popular in modern practice due to its milder taste and additional antimicrobial properties. You put the oil in your mouth and swish it gently around your teeth, gums, and tongue for 15 to 20 minutes. Not gargling. Gargling with oil is uncomfortable and unnecessary. Not vigorous swishing. Aggressive movement causes jaw fatigue and misses the point. A gentle, rhythmic pulling of the oil through the spaces between your teeth, over the surfaces of your gums, and across the surface of your tongue. The motion should feel effortless. Many practitioners do it while showering, reading, or preparing breakfast. During those 15 to 20 minutes, something remarkable happens at the microscopic level. The lipid membrane of the oil interacts with the lipid membranes of bacterial cell walls. Oil is hydrophobic. It repels water but attracts fat. Bacterial cell membranes are made of lipids, fats. When oil contacts bacteria, the lipid layers merge. The bacteria are literally pulled off the surfaces of the teeth and gums and suspended in the oil. The longer you swish, the more bacteria are captured. The oil acts as a biological magnet for microorganisms. After 15 to 20 minutes, you spit the oil out. It will have turned white and milky from the emulsification of saliva and the bacteria it has collected. If you examine that spit-out oil under a microscope, you would see millions of bacterial cells suspended in the lipid matrix. You have just mechanically removed a significant percentage of the pathogenic bacteria in your mouth without killing a single beneficial organism. You rinse with warm water, spit again, and proceed with your normal oral hygiene routine. The Charaka Samhita claims that oil pulling strengthens the teeth and gums, prevents decay, eliminates bad breath, heals cracked lips, strengthens the jaw, and improves the sense of taste. Some later Ayurvedic texts expanded the claims to include benefits for the entire body, clearing the sinuses, improving digestion, brightening the skin, reducing headaches, and even enhancing the voice. These broader systemic claims have not been validated by clinical research and should be treated with appropriate skepticism, though it is worth noting that the oral systemic health connection is now one of the most active areas of medical research, with established links between oral bacteria and cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and preterm birth. The idea that oral health affects whole body health is no longer controversial in mainstream medicine. The Ayurvedic practitioners simply got there 5,000 years earlier. But the core claims the ones about teeth, gums, and oral hygiene have been tested repeatedly in controlled clinical trials published in peer-reviewed journals, and the results are remarkably consistent. The AI processed 42 clinical studies published between 2008 and 2024 in journals, including the Journal of Traditional and Complementary Medicine, the Indian Journal of Dental Research, 1. The Journal of Clinical and Diagnostic Research, the Journal of Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine, and the Journal of Indian Society of Pedodontics and Preventive Dentistry. It weighted each study by sample size, methodology quality, control group design, and statistical significance, and it synthesized the aggregate evidence into a single, quantified assessment. The findings across the 42 studies converge on 3 primary outcomes. First, plaque reduction. Oil pulling with coconut oil or sesame oil reduces dental plaque scores by 18% to 30% over a 2-week period, comparable to chlorhexidine mouthwash. Multiple randomized controlled trials have shown no statistically significant difference between oil pulling and chlorhexidine in plaque reduction when measured by standard indices. Second, gingivitis reduction. Oil pulling reduces gingival bleeding and inflammation scores by 20% to 60% over a 4-week period. Several studies found it equivalent to chlorhexidine for mild to moderate gingivitis. One 2015 study published in the Nigerian Medical Journal found that oil pulling with coconut oil reduced plaque index and gingival index scores comparably to chlorhexidine after 30 days of daily use. A 2014 study in the Journal of Clinical and Diagnostic Research compared oil pulling with sesame oil to chlorhexidine mouthwash in 60 adolescents over 10 days and found statistically equivalent reductions in plaque-induced gingivitis. The adolescents who used oil pulling reported 0 side effects. The adolescents who used chlorhexidine reported altered taste, burning sensation, and dry mouth, the standard side effects that every mouthwash user knows but accepts as normal. A 2017 randomized controlled trial published in the Journal of Contemporary Dental Practice went further. It compared 3 groups: oil pulling with coconut oil, chlorhexidine mouthwash, and distilled water placebo. After 30 days, both the oil pulling group and the chlorhexidine group showed significant reductions in plaque and gingivitis scores compared to the placebo group. The difference between oil pulling and chlorhexidine was not statistically significant. The difference between both groups and the placebo was highly significant. Oil pulling is not a placebo, it is a treatment, and it works as well as the $8 bottle. Third, bacterial reduction. Oil pulling significantly reduces the count of Streptococcus mutans, the primary bacterium responsible for dental cavities and saliva. A 2016 study in the Journal of Clinical and Diagnostic Research found a 20% reduction in S. mutans colony-forming units after 2 weeks of oil pulling, comparable to chlorhexidine mouthwash. A separate study published in the Journal of Indian Society of Pedodontics and Preventive Dentistry found that oil pulling with sesame oil reduced S. mutans counts by 25% to 30% after 40 days, with the reduction sustained as long as the practice continued. Fourth, and this one is the sleeper finding that gets almost no attention: halitosis, bad breath. Oil pulling is remarkably effective at reducing oral malodor. A 2011 study published in the Journal of Indian Society of Pedodontics compared oil pulling to chlorhexidine specifically for halitosis and found equivalent reductions in volatile sulfur compounds, the molecules that cause bad breath. But here is the difference. Chlorhexidine itself causes altered taste sensation and a brownish staining of the teeth with prolonged use. Oil pulling causes neither. For the millions of Americans who use mouthwash primarily for bad breath, which is, let's be honest, why most people use it, oil pulling achieves the same result without staining your teeth brown or making your morning coffee taste like metal. Fifth, candida reduction. Oil pulling with coconut oil has been shown to reduce oral Candida albicans, the fungus responsible for oral thrush. A 2015 study in the Journal of Medicinal Food found that coconut oil was as effective as fluconazole, a prescription antifungal, at inhibiting candida growth in vitro. For immunocompromised patients, elderly patients with dentures, and anyone prone to oral fungal infections, this finding is significant: a $0.10 daily practice that achieves antifungal results, comparable to a prescription medication. And here is where the AI found the critical difference, the difference that makes oil pulling potentially superior to mouthwash for long-term oral health. Chlorhexidine is an antiseptic. It kills bacteria indiscriminately. It does not distinguish between harmful bacteria and beneficial bacteria. It sterilizes the oral cavity. And the oral cavity, like the gut, has a microbiome, a complex community of hundreds of bacterial species that perform essential functions. Some of those bacteria produce nitric oxide from dietary nitrates. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator. It relaxes blood vessels and reduces blood pressure. Multiple studies have shown that chlorhexidine mouthwash use disrupts this nitric oxide pathway and is associated with measurable increases in systolic blood pressure. Oil pulling does not sterilize the mouth. It works through a different mechanism, mechanical adhesion. The oil physically binds to the lipid membranes of bacterial cell walls and pulls the bacteria off the surfaces of the teeth and gums. It preferentially removes pathogenic bacteria because these tend to be more loosely attached to oral surfaces than established biofilm communities. The beneficial bacteria, which are more firmly integrated into the oral microbiome, are largely preserved. The AI summarized this distinction with clinical precision. Oil pulling demonstrates comparable efficacy to chlorhexidine for plaque reduction, gingivitis reduction, and mutans colony reduction, while preserving oral microbiome diversity. Chlorhexidine achieves equivalent antimicrobial outcomes through indiscriminate bacterial elimination, with documented disruption of nitric oxide-producing bacterial communities and associated cardiovascular implications. In plain language, they both clean your mouth equally well, but one destroys the ecosystem inside your mouth and raises your blood pressure. The other does not. The AI identified a clear winner among the oils tested in the clinical literature: coconut oil. Not because it is trendy, not because wellness influencers put it in their smoothies, not because it has a pleasant taste, because of one specific compound: lauric acid. Coconut oil is approximately 50% lauric acid by weight. Lauric acid is a medium-chain fatty acid with potent antimicrobial properties that have been documented in over 200 peer-reviewed studies. When lauric acid encounters bacteria in the oral environment, enzymes in saliva, specifically lipase, partially convert it to monolaurin. Monolaurin is a monoglyceride that disrupts bacterial cell membranes by inserting itself into the lipid bilayer, causing the membrane to lose structural integrity and the cell to lyse burst open. It is, in effect, a molecular wrecking ball that specifically targets bacteria, fungi, and enveloped viruses while leaving human cells unharmed. Monolaurin has been shown to be effective against Streptococcus mutans, the primary cause of dental cavities, Candida albicans, the fungus that causes oral thrush, Porphyromonas gingivalis, a major periodontal pathogen, and Helicobacter pylori, the bacterium linked to stomach ulcers and gastric cancer. A single compound in a kitchen oil is effective against the 4 most clinically significant oral pathogens, and it does so through a mechanism membrane disruption that bacteria cannot develop resistance to. Unlike antibiotics, which bacteria can evolve to resist through genetic mutation, monolaurin attacks the physical structure of the cell membrane. You cannot evolve resistance to having your cell wall ripped apart. It would be like trying to evolve resistance to being hit by a truck. Sesame oil, the traditional Ayurvedic choice, also has antimicrobial properties, primarily through sesamol and sesamin, 2 lignans with documented antibacterial and anti-inflammatory effects. Its lauric acid content is negligible compared to coconut oil, but it has been used successfully in oil pulling for millennia, and the clinical studies confirm its efficacy. The studies that compared coconut oil pulling directly to sesame oil pulling found that coconut oil produced slightly better outcomes for plaque reduction and bacterial reduction, though both were significantly effective compared to placebo. The AI also noted something that the dental industry has been remarkably quiet about: coconut oil is anti-inflammatory. The lauric acid and its metabolites reduce the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines, specifically interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha in gum tissue. Chronic gum inflammation, periodontitis, is not just a dental problem. It is now recognized as a systemic inflammatory condition linked to cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, Alzheimer's disease, preterm birth, and certain cancers. The American Heart Association has published advisories noting the association between periodontal disease and heart disease. A daily practice that reduces oral inflammation without disrupting the oral microbiome has potential health benefits that extend far beyond the mouth benefits that the dental industry has no financial incentive to study and every financial incentive to ignore. A tablespoon of virgin coconut oil costs approximately $0.08 to $0.12, depending on the brand and size. A capful of Listerine costs approximately $0.15 to $0.25. A bottle of prescription chlorhexidine costs $15 to $30 and requires a dental visit and prescription. The coconut oil works comparably for plaque, gingivitis, bacterial reduction, halitosis, and candida. It preserves the oral microbiome. It reduces systemic inflammation. It has been used safely for 5,000 years. It has 0 documented serious adverse effects, and it is available at every grocery store on the planet for less than the price of a candy bar. The AI did not editorialize. It presented the data. The data speaks for itself. There is an obvious question. If oil pulling works, why does your dentist not recommend it? The answer has several layers, and the AI identified each one. First, training. Dental schools in the United States and Europe do not teach Ayurvedic medicine. They do not teach oil pulling. The curriculum is built around the products and procedures of modern Western dentistry: fluoride toothpaste, chlorhexidine mouthwash, dental sealants, fillings, crowns, and implants. A dentist who graduated from any accredited dental school in the last 50 years has never received a single hour of instruction on oil pulling. They have never read the studies. They do not know the evidence exists. They dismiss it because it was not in their textbook. Second, liability. A dentist who recommends a non-standard treatment assumes legal risk. If a patient develops a cavity after oil pulling, even if they would have developed the cavity anyway, the dentist could face a malpractice claim. Recommending chlorhexidine is safe because it is the standard of care. Recommending coconut oil is risky because it is not. The system incentivizes conformity. Third, economics. The dental industry is a $160 billion market in the United States. Mouthwash alone is a $7 billion global market. Oral care products, toothpaste, mouthwash, whitening strips, specialty rinses represent one of the highest margin consumer product categories in existence. Coconut oil is a commodity that costs pennies per dose and cannot be patented. No pharmaceutical company is going to fund a clinical trial that proves a kitchen ingredient replaces a branded product that generates billions in revenue. This is not cynicism, it is economics. Clinical trials cost between $1 million and $10 million to conduct. The funding comes from companies that expect a return on investment. The return on investment from proving that coconut oil works is zero, because you cannot patent coconut oil, you cannot brand it exclusively, and you cannot charge a premium for it. The return on investment from proving that a new mouthwash formulation works is enormous. You get a patent, a brand, a premium price point, and a captive customer who buys a new bottle every month for the rest of their life. The funding flows toward the patentable product. The non-patentable traditional practice gets ignored, not because it does not work, because proving it works does not make anyone money. The studies that do exist are funded by universities and government health agencies, primarily in India, where Ayurveda is not alternative medicine but mainstream medicine. The Indian government funds Ayurvedic research through the Ministry of Ayush, a cabinet-level ministry dedicated to traditional medicine systems. India takes Ayurveda as seriously as America takes the FDA. And the research coming out of Indian universities is rigorous, peer-reviewed, published in indexed journals, and largely ignored by Western dentistry. Fourth, cultural bias. Western medicine has a deep and well-documented bias against traditional medicine systems from the developing world. Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, and African herbal traditions are routinely dismissed as unscientific without examination of the evidence. The same medical establishment that prescribes aspirin originally derived from willow bark used by indigenous peoples for millennia dismisses oil pulling as folk medicine. The double standard is not subtle. It is structural. The AI identified this pattern across multiple traditional medicine practices. The efficacy of the practice is supported by clinical evidence. The practice uses a natural substance that cannot be patented. The practice competes with a commercial product that can be patented. And the practice is dismissed by the medical establishment without engagement with the evidence. The pattern repeats across cultures, centuries, and continents. There is something deeply strange about the modern world's relationship with ancient medicine. We accept aspirin derived from willow bark, used for millennia by indigenous peoples across Europe and the Americas, as a legitimate drug. We accept morphine derived from the opium poppy, used by the Sumerians 5,000 years ago, as essential medicine. We accept quinine derived from the bark of the cinchona tree, used by Quechua healers in Peru for centuries before Europeans arrived, as a standard anti-malarial. We accept these because pharmaceutical companies isolated the active compounds, synthesized them, patented them, and sold them back to us at a markup. But we dismiss oil pulling, a technique used for 5,000 years, tested in 42 clinical trials, shown to match the performance of the leading commercial alternative, because nobody has patented coconut oil. Because it costs $0.10 instead of $8. Because it comes from a tradition that Western medicine has never taken seriously. Because admitting it works would mean admitting that a 5,000-year-old technique performed in a kitchen with a tablespoon and a jar is as effective as a $7 billion industry. The AI does not care about any of that. It reads the data, it compares the outcomes, it measures the effect sizes. It weights the studies by methodology, quality, and sample size. It adjusts for bias. And it says, comparable efficacy for plaque reduction, gingivitis reduction, bacterial reduction, halitosis reduction, and candida reduction, lower cost by a factor of 80. Better microbiome preservation, fewer side effects, zero cardiovascular risk, no taste alteration, no tooth staining. 5,000 years of continuous safe use across a population of over 1 billion people. No reported serious adverse events in the entire historical record. Your dentist may not tell you this. Your dental school did not teach it. Your insurance does not cover it. Your pharmacy does not stock a prescribed version of it because there is no prescribed version. It is coconut oil, and you can buy it at any grocery store for $7 a jar that will last 3 months. The clinical evidence is published in indexed, peer-reviewed journals accessible to anyone with an internet connection. The AI has synthesized it. And the answer is clear. A practice that Ayurvedic physicians have been recommending since before the Bronze Age, since before the pyramids were built, since before writing was invented in most of the world, works as well as the branded product your dentist sells you today. The only difference is the price tag. And the patent. And the billion-dollar marketing budget that convinces you every morning that you need a chemical rinse instead of a tablespoon of oil. The ancient Indians did not have clinical trials. They did not have mass spectrometers or bacterial colony counters or randomized controlled study designs. They had something better for the purpose of discovering what works. Time. 5,000 years of time. Hundreds of generations of practitioners observing, adjusting, refining, and passing down what worked and discarding what did not. That is the longest clinical trial in the history of medicine. And the AI just read the results. Subscribe, because the AI keeps finding the same pattern everywhere. It looks ancient knowledge, dismissed as primitive, confirmed by modern science, suppressed by modern commerce. The next scroll it reads might save you more than $8 a month. It might save your health. The next file is on your screen.